Nick here with another East Coast Cars video. Been a while since we've been on, but I figured since we're all locked in quarantine, what's a better time than right now to wash your vehicle? So I want to show everyone how I do it and go over everything step by step. Alrighty, so what we're looking at is my personal 2013 Lexus ISF. This vehicle is the second generation IS platform with the 5-liter V8. It was Lexus's take on a performance vehicle. I personally like this car. Drop a like if you want to see a review on this car in the future. Alrighty everyone, so we're going to start off with everything we're going to need to actually wash the car. So first things first, let's start with the inside. We're definitely going to want to vacuum the car. That's one of the first things we have to do. You cannot have a clean outside if the interior of your vehicle is dirty. So we're going to vacuum the car. I'll go over a couple of techniques. Next thing we're going to use is wheel cleaner. So I have a couple of things here. First things first is we have a dirty wash mitt and extra bucket for washing the wheels. We don't want to contaminate what's on the wheels onto the paint of the vehicle. That's an easy way to put swirls on the paint. Also have a brush here. This we'll use to help get inside the lug nut area and the valve stem to get it as clean as possible. Now, second thing we're going to want to do is called the 2-bucket method. So this first bucket here is where I'm going to put the soap for the car. This second one is where we'll wash our mitt. I also have these dirt traps. What's going to happen is we're going to rub our mitt on the bottom of the bucket with these dirt traps, which will help clean the mitt so that we don't accidentally put dirt on the mitt and then onto the paint of the vehicle. Use a dedicated glass cleaner, something that won't streak up the windshield. Nothing is worse than when you're driving down a dark road. You have a street light up on the road, you can't see anything because of the glare on the windshield. So we're definitely going to want to use our own glass cleaner here. Also, very good high quality microfiber towels are a must. You don't want to use these cheaper kind here. These will work well for the interior because we're not going to be working with many high gloss surfaces, but definitely on the outside we want to use soft towels only, nothing that's going to be abrasive to the paint. One other thing that I did want to mention real quick, guys, is today we are also going to be using some brushes. So these brushes are very, very helpful, especially on these newer cars where you have a lot of small, tight spaces. These brushes will allow us to agitate these surfaces and get them cleaned up. And this little stuff here is really the difference between cleaning the car well and just cleaning the car because you're bored. What are we looking for when we're cleaning the interior? Well, the first thing that I always like to clean is the leather seats. So what you want to do first is vacuum the seats, get all the debris in there, the loose debris, lint, food crumbs if you eat in your car. I personally don't. But you want to basically get this as clean as you can. Same thing with center console here. Always want to wipe down the little areas. We'll get into like how to clean these tight areas with those brushes. It really makes a big difference. Here with the navigation here, obviously want to clean that. This area here, we want to be careful, use a soft cloth. This stuff here does show swirls quite easily. Same thing with the gauge cluster. If you use a dirty rag or a paper towel, it will have scratches in it. With the steering wheel, I personally love a nice matte finish. Don't buy products, guys, with cleaners in them that make the leather feel greasy. It's not the natural look. I work around new cars every day, and the look that when they come from the factory is a nice matte look, and it feels amazing. Now with the carpet, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to clean these areas, scrub them out. First thing you want to do is obviously get the loose dirt off. What we'll then do is we'll use a brush to kind of comb this area out once the dirt's been vacuumed up, and we'll do the same thing with the base carpets underneath. Now, another area we definitely want to pay attention to is this dorsal area here. This trim up here is kind of the same thing. We definitely want to make sure that this trim we clean. We can also use the brush to scrub it depending on how dirty it is. Your doors will get scratched. I'm very, very careful about it. These doors don't have any scratches on them, but they do have dirt. So we can get that dirt off and make it look very good. Another area is definitely in here. We want to focus on that, get that cleaned up. All right, guys, so what we want to do first when it comes to the inside of the car, like I said, I'll show you guys wiping everything down. First things first, gotta clean the carpeted mats or the all-weather mats. Unfortunately, in this video, I don't have all-weather mats to show you right this second, but I will definitely show you how I clean them to make them look a little bit better. They are a little bit, I would say, easier as far as cleaning because you just have to rinse them down and put some soap on them and they're good to go. The way I like to do it when it comes to cleaning the mats is I'm gonna put them all here. I wanna try to get a clean surface. Reason being is I don't wanna have to put them on my dirty garage floor or even on the pavement here because there's dirt, rocks, and everything like that will get on the bottom of the carpeted mats, and then you're gonna put them right back in your car. So in this case, these mats are pretty good. They don't really need much of anything other than a nice vacuum. If they were a little bit dirtier, we could spray some carpeted cleaner, scrub them down, spray it, and then vacuum that off. But in this case, I think we're just gonna vacuum. So I'm gonna show you real quick just how I do it, just to make it look good. So first things first, guys, gonna start with the driver's side mat. Doesn't matter which one you start with, just matters that you're vacuuming. So first things first, I'm gonna start from the top, work my way down. I'm gonna go from left to right. This will just kind of get as much of the dirt off as we possibly can. On this map, I'm not gonna flip it over. On the passenger one, you see it here, I flip the mat over, pull from the other direction. This gives it a nice pattern. It's just a more professional look. I prefer the way it looks. If the mats were dirtier, I would recommend spraying them with carpeting cleaner, brushing the mats out, and then going over it with a vacuum. In this case, we are not going to be doing that with these particular mats.
Alright guys, real quick, one of the things I want to go over with you. If you notice, I flipped this mat around and I started going from the other direction. You get a lot of people really like the way that this looks, especially when you put it in the car. It just gives it a finishing touch. I do it on all of them. As you can see, even this here just looks so much nicer. It just looks clean and it gives it its own little kind of character. It's just really like the way that this looks when it's clean. I didn't do it on this one on purpose, and you can kind of see, I mean, this mat obviously gets the most use, but even this one, it just does not look the same, and this is just a much cleaner look. Alright guys, so next thing we want to do is we want to clean the interior of the car. So we're going to start real quick. We're going to start with vacuuming the seats. Want to get all the dirt, like I said, out of there. We'll start with them, and then we'll move on to the carpets underneath. We're not going to vacuum the dash, and we're not going to vacuum the center console. We want to wipe those down with microfiber towels. If you have compressed air, now would be a good time to kind of shoot that in there after you vacuum, just to clean out the rest of that debris.
First things we're gonna do is I'm gonna clean out the carpets underneath here. What I like to do is typically start going front to back. Just get as much as the dirt out first before we start doing anything crazy. I'm currently vacuuming the trans tunnel here. Sometimes if your foot, especially if you're moving it in and out of the car, you can get dirt up there. So you just want to vacuum that area out. Get underneath by the seat as best you can. If you have a shallow vacuum attachment, it really does make things significantly easier. Now the next thing you want to do is using a different attachment or cleaning the one that you just used. You want to vacuum the seats. Typically I would do this first, but in the order that I did it, I ended up doing the carpets first. But just don't use the same attachment without cleaning it, as you definitely don't want to put any sort of dirt back on your leather seats, especially that from the carpet. It will get trapped in the attachment, so you definitely want to clean it with a microfiber rag or use another one if you have it. Alrighty guys, so now that we vacuumed the driver's side, we're just going to repeat the process for the rest of the carpets on the vehicle. Moving on to the interior, today the product we're going to be using is going to be the Chemical Guys Total Interior Cleaner and Protectant. I'm a big fan of this product. I've been using it for quite a while. The product here delivers a nice matte finish. It doesn't leave any gloss, which I personally really like the look of. What we want to do is apply it to our towel directly, not onto the surface. We'll put the bottle outside after we wet the towel. Now what we're going to do is I always like to start with the cleanest area before I do anything that's dirty. So in my case, the center console has nothing in it. There's no dirt, so I'm going to start there. What I like to do is continue in one motion. So just seeing, as you can see, I'm dragging it from the front to the back of the car. You don't want to do any sort of crazy movements. As you can see, I'm just going nice and smooth. You don't want to do anything where you're, worrying about having to put swirls in. Doing the motion of swirls like this is the easiest way to put swirls into anything, whether it's paint or plastic. Areas like this, you just kind of want to spend a little more time. Use the wettest area of the cloth, wet it down. I'll press my fingers in here to kind of get into these tighter crevices. If it was smaller, I could use a brush, but this area does not require that at this point. Moving on to the upper area here of the center console. I always like to be very careful. These chrome pieces, although they do look nice, they can swirl quite easily. Navigation screen, what I like to do is dab it first, try to get as much of that dust off as we possibly can. What I'll do now is I'll flip it to the dry side, and I'll wipe it down just in a from the top to the bottom motion, nice and gentle, not pressing too hard. With this product, as you can see, it leaves a nice dull finish. It doesn't make anything feel glossy. When I use my finger here, it's not leaving any fingerprint residue, which is a big plus for me. I don't like to see fingerprints on the navigation screen, so anything that can slow that process down, I'm a big fan of. Alrighty guys, so moving on to the steering wheel of the car. We don't have to be as cautious here when it comes to worrying about scratches. This is a dull plastic, so what we're gonna do is we'll get the area wet, clean it up. As you can see, this area here is glossy, so I want to pay a little bit extra attention there. You can see there's a little bit of stuff there. I'll wipe it off. Just nice and smooth. I don't need to apply too much pressure. You don't need to do that with anything when it comes to detailing. In regards to this cleaner, it does work on leather. However, I like to use a dedicated leather cleaner for the steering wheel and the seats. Alright, so now with the dashboard, what we want to do is, again, wet the towel first. Don't spray anything onto the dashboard itself. We'll move in nice, smooth lines, pulling the dust off of the dashboard first. Essentially, think of it like you're going to be dusting it. You don't want to rub in that dust. That's not the way to do it. What you want to do is try to get as much of that dust off, and then you can work the product out. And you also kind of want to get back in there with your fingers, get towards the dashboard. Don't over apply the product. You don't want a nice shiny dashboard. That's not how they're supposed to look. It's supposed to have a matte finish, and it's just supposed to be dull. It's not supposed to be shiny or super reflective. Alrighty, so just a quick recap on the interior. So first thing we did, we vacuumed the mats, we vacuumed the carpets in the car itself. After that, we vacuumed the seats, got all the loose debris in there, wiped down the center console. At this point, the interior on this car is good to go. Next area that we want to move on to is going to be our panels. So the door panel, this sill panel here. We want to get those cleaned up. As you can see, there's a high traffic area, so dirt and stuff does get on here. Now, these scratches are not going to come out, but we're going to focus on the dirt, make it look as good as we can. Here, there are products out there that have a high amount of gloss. They almost act as like a glaze. I have used them. They do hide the scratches. Unfortunately, when the product is out, the scratches do bleed through. So if you're using a product for the first time, test it in an inconspicuous area like up here, somewhere you're not going to see. Reason being is that if the product doesn't react well to whatever you're cleaning, you don't want to mess up an area that people can see. And it'll also really hurt you when you have to see it every single time. So what I'll do, this foam cleaner, I'll spray directly into the towel. I'll mush it up together here just to kind of to help build up that foaming action. What we're essentially doing first, I'm going to dab it on here. I'm going to get as much of the dust and the hard dirt that's on there off before I start moving it back and forth. Reason being is I don't want to put any new scratches in the panel that I didn't mean to. Flip it here to the dry side. The product was on the opposite side here. We're going to flip it over now, and we're going to just wipe it down. This is the first wipe just to kind of get as much as the product that we just put on there off. And now the surface is now free from any sort of contaminants like dirt, sand, whatever else is going to be on that console. So again, we're just going to keep wiping, wipe down the whole area here, get as much as you can. Don't rub it on the paint. We're just doing the panels at this point. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to take my product again. What I like to do is put the towel behind the panel, spray it down, get a nice little bit, not too much of the product on there, and I'm just going to work it in nice and slow. But again, you can see the product is really starting to foam up. It's helping to pull up as much of that dirt from that panel as we possibly can. Again, those scratches, unfortunately, are not going to come out, but we can clean it up as best we can. So we're just going to go back and forth. You can really see it start to work. This product has a little bit more of a glaze to it, which is why I prefer to use it on these panels, because it does help hide some of those imperfections, not eliminate them completely. Like I said, those scratches unfortunately are not going to come out, but the panel does look significantly better. It's now a nice black again, and those dirt marks for the most part have been removed. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I know I'm kind of in the way, but you can see when I zoom in, the amount of dirt has been significantly reduced, and it does look clean. Alrighty guys, so moving on to the door panels, we're going to go back to the Chemical Guys interior cleaner. Reason being is this product delivers more of a matte finish, which I prefer. On those door panels, on that panel, the sill panel, it's a high traffic area, so there's going to be more people stepping in and out of it. I want to try to cover the scratches, but on my door panel, I prefer the matte finish. So we're going to start off at the top here, work our way down. As you can see, one thing to pay very close attention to, if you accidentally lock your door, make sure you have the keys on you. Don't lock the door or don't shut the door after you've accidentally hit the lock when you're cleaning it. It's not a fun situation, and that's not something that you want to put yourself into. So again, in regards to this, we're going to just kind of keep working it back and forth, flip the towel a couple of times, work out all the product that was sprayed onto the microfiber towel, get in those tighter areas like where the window controls are, behind the arm bar for your arm where it would rest. You want to try to just get it as clean as you possibly can. Same thing down here. Try to scrub as much of the dirt off. Scratches and stuff like that, unfortunately, if there are scratches in the door panel, you're not going to remove them by cleaning, but you definitely can make a little bit of an improvement. We also want to get the panels here on the glove box. Now that the door is open, it's a little bit easier to get to them, and we also want to get back here, pay special attention. It's hard to see on the camera, but there was a lot of small bits of dirt that just have collected back there. But if you have compressed air, you could shoot it right in there. Definitely helps. Unfortunately, I don't have access to it right now, but again, we're just going to wipe the area down, and as you can see, when this product dries, it's a matte finish. There's no gloss and nothing looks greasy, which is the look we're going for. Alrighty guys, so now that we've cleaned the inside of the vehicle, the next place that we want to start with first is going to be the rims. Now on this vehicle, it does come equipped with high friction brake pads. One of the downsides to high friction brake pads is they do tend to leave a lot of brake dust. Unfortunately, in this car, pretty much the minute you pull out after doing a car wash, the rims are covered and caked in hard brake dust. So the first step is we're going to want to water down the rims, try to break up as much of that dirt and brake dust as we possibly can. Next, after we water down the rims, we're going to start with our wheel cleaner. In this case, I bottled up the wheel cleaner into a spray bottle. If you have a spray bottle, it makes it a little bit easier to spray because they're usually a little bit of a lighter trigger. So we're just going to wet down the wheel with our cleaner, and then we'll get the surface agitated after the wheel cleaner has been applied to the surface of the rim. So now that the rim has been soaked in our wheel cleaner, I like to let it sit for about 15 to 30 seconds. Just let the wheel cleaner do its job, break up that brake dust. Now what we're going to use, I'm going to use the brush here. In this case, these rims have a lot of wide openings, so it's a lot easier with the brush. If you had a rim with tighter spokes, for example, you would want to use a wash mitt to kind of get back there. But in this case, the brush is going to suffice, and that's what we're going to be using. So I'm working my way in here. Want to be gentle. I'm not applying too much pressure. I don't want to scratch up the rim or anything like that. And you can see here that I am just going in one direction. I'm just kind of going and moving the brush all around, trying to get up near as close to the brake caliper as I can, and trying to squeeze behind the spokes. Now obviously you always have the option to go a little bit more in depth and get behind the rim, but in this case I'm just going to be doing the surface. But you can see, comparing the two, this rim is dull and caked in brake dust, while this other rim is now back to the silver color that it was meant to be. Alright, so after we coated the rim, I like to spray it down with wheel cleaner one more time, just so that as we're spraying the rim, it's going to break up as much of the brake dust as it possibly can. And again, we're going to go around the rim, start at the top, go to the bottom. After we do this, we are going to go back and use the power washer while we're washing the car as well to give us that finishing touch. Alrighty guys, so now that we've done the rims, the inside of the car has been done, the next thing that we're going to focus on is actually going to be the paint of the car. Now this is the most delicate and the part where you have to be the most cautious. In order to reduce the possibility of us instilling swirls into the paint of the vehicle, we're going to be using the 2-bucket method. Now what is the 2-bucket method? The 2-bucket method is very simple. It's 2 buckets. The first bucket here, the one on the left, the black bucket, is actually going to be our dirty bucket. So after we rinse off the vehicle, we're going to put our mitt in here, rub it on this dirt trap, and what this dirt trap is going to do is while you're rubbing the mitt, the dirt is going to get trapped underneath this dirt trap and not get back into the mitt, then putting that on the paint of the car. We want to try to reduce the possibility of putting swirls in paint as much as we possibly can. The blue bucket here, obviously this is going to be the second bucket. This one is going to be our soap. I always like to put a dirt trap in here as well, just so that, again, we're reducing the chance of dirt getting on our mitt, because we're going to put that mitt directly on the paint of the car. So this is just all preventative. It doesn't have to go all the way down. This one's a little bit of a different design. The other ones are too big. So again, but as far as putting soap in here, what we want to do, I kind of eyeball it. You know, you could measure it out, a cup and a half. I've washed my car so much now that I just kind of know how much to put in. I like to just do a quick circle motion, you know, around the rim of the bucket, and that's usually plenty of soap. So what I'll do is after I put this in here, is we're going to actually then take our pressure washer, which if you have one is a lot easier. You can do this with the hose as well, but the pressure washer, with the high amount of pressure it produces, makes a big sud show. So it's always nice to see, and we want to have as much suds as possible so we have the most lubrication between our mitt and the paint of the vehicle. Again, this is all to prevent the possibility of putting swirls in. Anytime that something is touching the paint, there's always that possibility, so we want to try our best to keep that at a minimum. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rinse down the paint of the car. We're going to start off at the roof. Basically what we're going to be doing is trying to get as much of the loose debris off of the paint of the car. So we want to start our way at the top, work our way down. You don't want to start at the bottom. Reason being is that if you start at the bottom, when you go back up top, the dirt's just going to recollect there. As you can see, I am hitting the rims again one more time with the pressure washer. This is just going to help get as much of the remaining brake dust off. There's hard crust spots here on the edge that I can see that I missed, so I'm just going to take my time and get them. So one other thing too, you don't want to wear any sort of jewelry, no necklaces, no bracelets, anything like that that's going to scratch the paint. We want to try to be as cautious as we can, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen people where they go to wash their car and they have a ring on and they just scratch it while they're using the wash mitt. So we're going to loop our way around the car here and just get it as wet as we can and clean off as much of that base dirt. So after we've rinsed down the car, the next step is we're going to be washing the vehicle with our mitt. This mitt, I always like to wash them in the washer machine before I start. As you can see, there's no dirt in here. This is a chemical guy's mitt in particular. Again, I'll leave links to everything we've used in this video in the description, but the mitt's clean. There's no dirt on it. First step here is we are going to wipe off our dirt trap, put this in the clean bucket. And now in regards to the dirty bucket, we're going to still clean the mitt, even though it is clean. We want to get it wet. I'm going to push it down to the bottom. Once I'm here in the bottom, I'm essentially rubbing it back and forth, flipping it in the water, rubbing the other side. I like to do this 2 or 3 times, just so we run the risk. Again, we don't want to put any swirls. We want to get as much of that dirt off. The mitt is clean, so we can let the water drip down. If the mitt was dirty, we'd like to kind of get that out, but in this case, it's still clean. So I'll rinse the rest of the water out here, and now what I'm going to do, I like to just hit it with the pressure washer. Again, get as much of the soap as we possibly can. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wash mitt here, and I'm going to actually put it in the soap. And I want to try to get as much of the wash mitt covered in soap as we possibly can. That way we have as much lubrication between the mitt and the paint while washing. Alright, so when it comes to washing the car, as you can see, the mitt here is now filled with soap. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the top here and work our way down. We always want to start with the roof of the vehicle. One good practice is we don't want to start, let's say, for example, at the bottom of the door where there's a lot more dirt, and then work our way up. Again, our goal here is to try to reduce the likelihood of putting swirls in the paint. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going, in this case, I'm going to be going horizontally with the paint. Again, we want to try to reduce the ability of swirls, so when you're washing the car, don't swirl the mitt around. You want to pull in one direction. And again, I'll keep showing you guys how I do it. But on the roof here, as you can see, I'm bringing it towards me in one direction. I'm not going back and forth. I'm just pulling, trying to get as much of the contaminants off of the paint as I possibly can here. And again, we want to start at the top. We're going to work our way down, and just keep in mind, make sure that your mitt is covered in soap. This Chemical Guy stuff has a very good sud count, I guess you could call it, and it does keep the suds in there for a long time. But I have used soaps where they're not very soapy. So again, it all depends on what you're using, but try to keep the mitt as soapy as you can. That way you get the most lubrication between the mitt and the paint. Alrighty, so now that we just washed our first panel on the vehicle, the next step is to clean our wash mitt. We want to do this each and every panel. We don't want to do more than one panel at a time. First, I'm going to squeeze out the dirty water outside of the bucket here. Don't want to put it back in that bucket. Put the mitt in face down, and I'm going to press it in almost like I'm doing a bench press. I'm going to press the whole thing in, rotate it underneath, scrape the bottom of the mitt on that wash mitt, and you'll feel it hitting the dirt trap when you do this. As soon as you do it in real life, you'll feel it right away. So now I've done this about 4 times. I'm going to let it drip a little bit inside, check it visually, make sure there's no dirt in between the little bristles here. Just give it a look over, and then squeeze it out onto your driveway. Don't want to put it back in the bucket. And then what I like to do to make sure I know I did it, rest it right here on the bucket. So going back to the paint of the car here, what we want to do is, especially if you are washing the vehicle in direct sunlight, is you want to rinse off the soap as quickly as possible so that the soap does not dry on the paint. So we're going to start at the top here, let the soap run down. Obviously it's not going to do a whole bunch, but it is going to help break up some of that dirt that's on the paint on the bottom, making it a little bit easier and hopefully safer, because there'll be less contaminants for you to rub into the paint, hopefully then for reducing the scratches on the car. Next area, what I like to do first is going to be the front and back of the car. Now, for the purposes of keeping this video shorter, I'm only going to be showing the hood, but the principle is essentially the same whether you're doing the front or the back of the vehicle. What we want to do is, again, water the car down. Get a lot of suds on there. Hoods, especially on this car, it is a quite large hood, so it does show a lot of scratches in direct sunlight, so I want to be very gentle. I'm starting at the top, working my way down, going in one motion. I'm not pulling the mitt back and forth. As you can see, I'm just going down, working it, and then starting back at the top. You can flip the mitt over if you have a good amount of soap on there, which I do, so I'll flip the mitt over a couple of times. But as you can see, I'm just kind of working my way from the top down. I'm not going from the bottom back to the top or anything like that, and I'm going in one motion. This reduces the likelihood of us instilling swirls, and on this color especially, it just ruins the look. So you really want to try your best to minimize that. But as you can see, I'm being very gentle. I'm not pressing the mitt or anything like that. I'm just going from the top to the bottom in vertical motions. And again, here you see I'll flip it around just to kind of get that rest of the soap. And this actually ended up covering the whole panel, so we don't even have to go back and do this twice. We do it all in one shot. But again, to do this, the hood at this point now is decontaminated, it's plenty lubricated, so I can go back up to the top a little bit, but I don't want to spend too much time up there. And once I do the bumper here, that's pretty much it. You don't want to go back up to the top. Gonna get the headlights, work our way into the grill here. You can use your fingers, especially with this mitt. Your hand rests inside it, so don't be afraid to get in there with the mitt. Get as much of the mesh stuff of the grill as you can cleaned up. All right, so after we've used our mitt to clean up the hood on this car, what we're gonna do is we're gonna rinse off that soap. Again, we're gonna clean the mitt afterwards, but first thing we want to do is get rid of the soap on the paint. We don't want to let that dry. Now that we've done the trunk and the hood of the vehicle, the next thing is going to be the doors on the vehicle. So this is a very critical area, actually. A lot of people, when they start washing their car, they'll go horizontally here. They think that it covers a lot more surface area, which it does, but unfortunately, we want to go vertically. Reason being is that if we do accidentally scratch up the car, the swirls are a lot harder to see if we're going up and down, whereas going left to right, especially in certain angles of the sunlight, it'll stick out like a sore thumb. I had someone wash my car once, and they did that, and you could see it right after the car wash. So again, I'm going to start up here at the top of the door, work my way down. What I like to do is flip the mat around a couple times. I don't want to go more than halfway. Basically what I'm doing is I'm drawing a line in my head. Okay, this is how far I'm going to go down, and I'm going to stop. I want to get behind the door panel here. As you can see, this is just an easy way to figure out, how low I can go. I want to try to keep the dirt to a minimum. Obviously, as you go lower on the door, there's going to be more debris on there. So by doing this, I have a higher chance of making sure I don't put swirls in the paint, and then I'll go over it again after I've done this. And you can see the soap is starting to actually lean down, so it's actually doing part of the bottom of the door for me. I don't even have to scrub it. It's going to start breaking some of that up. But again, I'll go over it a couple times, gentle, vertical motions only, and then I'll move on to the rear quarter panel as well. And again, same thing. Want to start at the top, work my way down. I clean the bit here, and I put more soap on it just to give me some more lubrication. So after I wash this rear quarter panel here, this is actually the last panel in the car. I already did the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash the bottom real quick, get the contaminants off of there, and then I'm going to rinse the vehicle starting from the top, working my way down, and that's going to do it. Again, the rear is pretty much the same as the hood, and the other side on the doors is, again, exactly the same. No need for me to show you it twice. Okay, so we've washed the car now. Paint is nice and clean. Now what we want to do is we want to dry it off. Now, as you can see, there's really no swirls in the paint. Did a pretty good job. I try to keep it as minimal as we can each time. Obviously, that's the goal, but the car looks good. So what we're gonna do, what I always like to do before I start drying the car is I like to grab detail spray. In this case, I have some Meguiar's Quick Detailer, and what I'm gonna do is just to kind of get the water to run off, I'm just gonna spray this on here. Now that wash and wax stuff should help with this, but you can see the water is gonna start to run off. Now obviously it's not going to come off in droves, but this kind of just helps keep the surface lubricated while we're wiping it with our towel, because most of the swirls that come into paint happen with people trying to dry them. So again, just kind of spray the whole car down best you can. Okay, so what you want to do now is get a nice soft clean towel. Don't ever use this on anything else. We're going to use this one just for the purpose of drying the car. Ideally, you also want to take the tag off, which is on the bottom here, but I'm just going to be careful. I'm not going to rub it. So a couple different methods. First one you can do is you can kind of fold the towel out like this. You can also do it as a whole, which is what I'll demonstrate here. So we put the towel down like so. And now what we want to do is kind of just pat it down. Doing a nice pat. I like to do this first because the microfiber towels work best when they're wet. So when I first start, this is how I dry it. So now I've patted it down. I'm gonna lift up. You can see that area is pretty clean. A couple little water spots, but nothing crazy. And again, I'll do the same thing. Flip it a little bit. Always try to cover at least, I would say, 10% of the area already cleaned, just so that you're getting a nice even dry. So again, just kind of get that in there and lift up. And you can see, looks good. There's no swirls in there. I mean, it looks like a mirror. I mean, you can even see with the sun shining on it, it looks good. And you can see where we didn't apply the towel is still wet. Alrighty guys, so let's take a look here at the finished product. As you can see, the car came out absolutely amazing. The paint looks nice and reflective, looks like a mirror. This Chemical Guys stuff does a really nice job as just basically a maintenance wash here. It does leave a layer of wax as it is a wash and wax product, so it's 2 in 1. Obviously it would look a little bit better if we waxed it afterwards, but if you guys drop a like and you like the way this video came out, I'd be more than happy to make another one. Another thing to pay attention is we want to get under the handle here, get the watermarks out. One thing to pay attention to, I've seen it before, water likes to drip from this mirror, go all the way down to the bottom. Just make sure you clean that area up. If you have compressed air, shoot that in there. But I'm taking a real quick look here at the bumper. If we get up nice and close here, as you can see, even in the direct sunlight, there's no swirls in the paint. Everything came out great, and we did a good job at protecting the paint. Looking at the rim came out awesome. That extra little rinse with the power washer really makes a big difference. And then under the door panels here, everything came out awesome. Alrighty guys, just gonna wrap this video up here. Car came out great. If you guys liked what you see, be sure to drop a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. I'd like to hear from you guys. Leave a couple of comments. Tell me what you'd like to see next. You know what you guys like to see. Stay safe during this quarantine, and be sure to subscribe for more future content.